Welcome to Stories of Hope, a podcast addressing the very real issue of suicides in the Army. Listen in on conversations with soldiers who have gotten help and shared their own story of hope.
Hey, good day, everybody. My name is Lieutenant General Gary Brito. I'm the Army's G1, the 49th G1. And welcome to Stories of Hope, where we will focus on the very serious topic of suicide and suicide prevention. And ladies and gentlemen, team, I come to you today as a very concerned and a motivated leader, a father, a husband, and a soldier now of 35 years. Actually, this month makes 35 years. And I have a young son in the Army. He's been in the Army since 2016. So this issue of suicide is near and dear and personal to me, and obviously love the Army, wouldn't still be serving after 35 years now. Also very humbled to serve as your moderator today as we talk soldier to soldier, leader to leader, with a person who I've known for several years now, a wonderful person who has agreed to share his story, in this case, of strength and resilience, and I'm sure a variety of other topics that may be near and dear to him as a leader. So over the next half hour or so, we'll take the opportunity to learn about today's guest and talk to him as he shares his story and experience. So without further ado, I would like to virtually introduce Chaplain Colonel Khalid Shabazz. And ladies and gentlemen, you may know about him from social media. I would say that he's quite a superstar online, but a very good and genuine person coupled with being a superstar online. And I've known Chaplain Shabazz for a couple of years now. Most recently saw him down in his current assignment. And Chaplain Shabazz, I'll tell you personally, and I'm sure others are enjoying it as well, it's very inspirational and uplifting to read your simple 1-2-liner quotes every morning called treadmill thoughts, and I can envision you on a treadmill thinking of things that you can share with the team. So I very much appreciate that, and it simply exudes confidence in you as a leader and you as our Army, which I'm sure has been built upon some of the experiences you've had. So Chaplain, I know it's not easy talking about suicides in the Army collectively, and definitely personally, so I thank you sincerely, Chaplain, for taking the time to have this conversation with me and us on the net today.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you, sincerely. I'd like to start with just turning the mic over to you and having you tell your story and let us know what you're going through, what you went through at that time. And I see nothing but positive energy in a leader that I know, that you, in this case, now, and what you're doing for the community that you're with, the unit that you're with, in our Army. So with that, Khalid, I'd like to turn the mic over to you, and I will stand by. Thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I'm sure our Army does as well. All yours.
Thank you, sir, for having me on. It's a great honor to be on this show this morning, just to try to give some stories, a story of hope to our young soldiers out there. I was a young soldier, obviously, and I dealt with suicidal ideations and things of that sort. But I'm gonna take the audience back to how it started. My journey is a horrific one. It started out at 10 years old being molested by a family friend. I didn't understand that. I didn't know how to deal with that, but I didn't want to hurt anybody in my family, even though I was hurt. So I never told my mom, but I started to act out in school, special education in the 8th grade, failed the 9th grade, failed the 10th grade, failed the 12th grade, and I had to graduate in summer school. I couldn't graduate with my class because I just couldn't understand. And I became very angry because of the molestation. I was fortunate enough to go to college. I went to a small historically Black college because God blessed me with this humongous body. I'm about 6'4", 265, so I was allowed to go to school to play sports. However, being at that school, I still hadn't dealt with the molestation, so I was angry. I was drinking myself to sleep every night. And every time somebody looked at me honestly with an eye, a jaundiced eye, I would fight them because I was trying to prove that I was a man. I was trying to prove that I was worthy to be among them. Poor self-worth, poor self-esteem. And I got to tell you, I didn't want to live most days, but I'm going to start crying here, but I always thought about my mom. I never wanted to let my mom down. So um, I carried on, but it was very detrimental behavior. And so it came to a head one night. I was in a party and, being the angry bully that I was, 6 guys jumped me. The night ended with me being beat with a shovel and shot in the back. I was airlifted out to Tyler Medical Center where I almost lost my life at 21 years old. And you would have thought, honestly, that after that, I would have gotten myself straight. But still, I hadn't dealt with the pain and the torture of molestation. And so I came back to the campus. I saw this young man 6 months later. Now, this is the importance about having good people in your life. My friends, so-called friends at that time, they saw him on campus, and you would have thought any intelligent-minded people would have put me in a car and got me out of there. But sir, I got to tell you, they did the worst thing they could for me. They gave me some loaded guns and told me to eliminate this guy. Oh, it was horrific. And again, all I could think about is my mom. And I decided that night not to do that. But I did have a fight with him, a pretty bad fight, and I went to jail that night. While I was in jail, I was at the lowest point, and I got to tell you, if I was had something near to me, I probably would have ended my life, but I didn't. Thank God. I was expelled from school, went back to Louisiana. I was working at Kmart as a janitor slash cashier. They cut hours at the job, and I was sleeping in my car for a while. So I decided to come to the United States Army, and so signed up, came in the Army. Again, we go back to this not dealing with my problems. I came in 1991, and before 1992 was out, I had 2 Article 15s chapter paperwork in hand. You talked in the beginning about leadership. Again, it was over for me. It was an hour. I was an hour away from suicide, and this Sergeant Major, who I'm still in touch with today, he brought me into his office, and he said, "You are more than your pain. You are more than your low self-esteem and low self-worth. I'm going to make you my mentee, and I'm going to get you to where you need to be." And so he did that. He treated me like a human being. He treated me like I was worth something. He honored me, even though he was a higher rank and I was a private first class. He treated me like a human being in front of my wife and my children, which meant the world to me. And I told him I was going to turn my life around. And I was a field artillery guy. He had PCS. I was in the field, and this is funny, but I see off in the distance the chaplain, and I said, if there is a God, please don't send the chaplain over to talk to me. I don't want to talk to the chaplain. He's going around with his little candy basket, and as God would have it, the chaplain came over and talked to me, and he talked to me for 1 solid hour. He said, "Hey, you're an intelligent guy. Why don't you become a chaplain?" And I got to tell you, for the first time in my life, I felt something was for me. And when he said that, it was like the heavens opened up. God and all his angels came down and descended and said, "Hey, this is how you can help people like you." So I accepted the call to be a chaplain that day. And the importance of telling this story, this is why I became a chaplain. to be able to help young men and young women like me who are in insufferable, insurmountable amount of pain. And I decided to dedicate my life because somebody saved my life, and I've been trying to save every life I could for the last 25 years. And that's my story, sir, and it's a tough one, but I've been able to reach thousands of soldiers through social media. I get emails, direct messages every day. I shared one on social media just yesterday where a young man, wife and 3 kids, said he was an hour away from suicide, and he saw my video and he decided to live. And so that's why I'm on social media. And so thank you for the opportunity to tell my story, sir.
Wow, Khalid, that, as I said, known you for a while, but definitely not those chapters of your story. I would tell you, if that was a book, I would buy it tomorrow. I'm almost at a loss of words, Chaplain, but I'd like to continue to speak with you on this.
Yes.
One, what you just shared to me, I can see the inspiration behind those morning messages that I received from you on the treadmill thoughts, the platform that God has given you, which is, and I'll attribute that to the encounter with the chaplain.
Yes, sir.
And again, as a leader, if I may ask, Chaplain, could you speak to the qualities of that sergeant major? To me, it seems like that might have been, and I'd really like to get your thoughts. You addressed it as a turning point.
Yes.
Could you, and all of us, leaders from a sergeant team leader all the way up to our most senior leaders in the Army have, when they care, when they care for their soldiers, when they want to build that cohesion that's necessary. And it's more than just combat readiness. It's really just the level of teamwork we all need when wearing this uniform, as you well know. Could you talk to some of the qualities of that sergeant major, and what did he possess that touched you, that allowed you to get through I'm going to use the word demons that you were dealing with at that time?
Yes, sir. He was a person that I saw from afar that was a standard bearer. He was fair. He was tough on all of us. He was just really somebody I respected, but was terrified of, as you can imagine. And for him to see me after I was read my Article 15, to come over and lower his wings of humility to me, I thought, man, that's phenomenal. But he said something to me that I didn't share. I was 26 years old at the time I came in later. And he said something to me that no man had ever said to me in my life. He said, I believe in you because I was you. I mean, my God. I mean, I couldn't even imagine him saying he was me. I mean, to me, honestly, sir, I was worthless. I didn't deserve to be on earth. How could this man say, have some type of congruence and say he was me? And so he kind of told me his story. It gave me hope. A man of that type of stature to talk to me. And so when he said he believed in me, I can tell you from that moment, I wasn't going to let him down. A funny part of that is he sent me to the Soldier of the Month board like 8 months in a row, and I failed all of them. But I bet you he said, man, that guy's dumber than I thought. But what he did for me, he was that going to those boards and having him believe in me presented me with a confidence that I've never had, because I was trying to, kind of like almost become him. And so that was the turning point for me.
Chaplain, that was more than just deep, but powerful. And I really like to personally thank you for sharing. In the beginning, you spoke to how you felt, and I may have missed the word, at the bottom,
Yes,
no
sir.
value.
Yes, sir.
Can you share any episode, any moments that you may have had that changed that feeling that you had, like being as low as you can go?
Well, the real motivation is I realized, I know people don't like to say this, but for me, I felt like I wasted 28 years or 25 years of my life. And once I started to get some confidence, I said to myself, if I had 25 years of failure, I'm going to spend the next 25 years in school. As crazy as that sounds, last May was my 25th year in a row in school. And so that's where you see the two PhDs and the four master's degrees. I was working myself to death to like myself, to have some self-esteem, to have some self-worth. And the most important part is to show soldiers and human beings from whatever background they are that you can still have some things that you're struggling with, but that does not mean that you can't succeed. And so while it's a little extreme with all the education, I wanted to be so outstanding that soldiers would say, okay, he didn't just kind of make it, he made it, right? And so when I'm talking to soldiers, I've just left the school that I was expelled from 30 years ago. Um, and talking to those students, I mean, their eyes were as bright as I've ever seen because I was one of them from that school. That was the motivation, and that is the motivation. And of course, the last motivation on all of my posts, you see, a son never forgets. I really want to honor my mom because she wanted me to grow up to be a smart man and a dignified man and a community asset. And before she passed, I promised her that I was going to do that, and I intend on keeping that promise until I pass away.
Well, Chaplain Shabazz, I think you've kept that promise in spades, and you're continuing to give. Hey, Chaplain, if I may ask, and in hopes of it helping others who are maybe listening to this podcast or have dealt with or dealing with levels of depression. Clearly, you referenced that early on, I would say, around the time you entered college and as in early phases of the Army. But you're clearly a very strong person, just from listening to this. So how did you deal with depression and just reconcile it as an emotion that did keep you from reaching the goals that you have now, whether they were goals that you realized or planned or goals that were just put upon you?
I was a basketball coach in the Army. I was a post basketball coach in the Army. As a enlisted soldier, I played basketball, but as a coach, one of the things I got to do was talk to those young men and young women. I coach men and women, and as I began to tell my story to them on a personal level, sir, I started to heal because I realized I wasn't alone. And so when I became a chaplain, I said, wow, what a great opportunity. I'm going to put myself out there. I know it's going to be a lot of people who don't like it, but I'm in the business of saving lives. And so as I began to tell this story, every time I tell it, even now, it heals me more. And so it motivates me to continue to tell it because there's so many people that are hiding behind rocks and they're depressed and they don't feel like they have any self-worth. And I tell you, I get thousands of messages on these social media sites. I mean, I got somewhere in total about 100,000 followers. And I tell you, I spend most of my nights just going through those messages and replying back to those folks. And it heals me. It gives me strength. And I think we had here at USR Cent, we had a LPD. One of the books that we were, I think Brene Brown, she talks about transparent leadership. And I was happy that the Commanding General was talking about being transparent. We're not telling everything about you, but telling some of your struggles helps other people who are struggling because you don't know what's behind the veil. It helps them to know that they can lead and be leaders without being perfect. And so that's why I do it, sir.
I like the way you put that, Chaplain, about being able to lead but not being perfect. Sometimes my personal thoughts just kind of drop in your shield and listening, a level of empathy sometimes.
Yes, sir.
Again, this is a just like I can feel this aura of positive. I'll call it positive energy coming from you. It came from a place where you learned over many years. So I can't tell you how thankful I am. Hey, Chaplain, if I have seen, and perhaps just my limited thoughts on, sometimes it's just a denial of being suicidal. What would you share with a person who might say, hey, I deny, or I don't look at myself as a suicidal person, but yet they outwardly, or maybe even inwardly, have ideations of suicide, where it might be thinking it's better for me not to wake up tomorrow, but yet I'm not suicidal. I don't know if I've explained that in proper context, but throughout your experiences, prior to beginning your educational journey, and then the 25 years of experience post being that person, what would be your thoughts on how to deal with the issue of having an ideation, acceptance of being suicidal, and seeking help?
You're absolutely right. The denial is always there because it's such a stigma that goes along with suicidal ideations or contemplating not waking up the next day. But some of the things that I talk to people about in that stage, and of course I was in that stage, you talked about being a leader and listening intently. You can hear it. I use those words of, worthlessness and no self-esteem and I can't complete anything. Those are red flags when you dig down deep. I was in JBLM. That was my division job, and in the chaplain's world, I guess that's akin to being a battalion commander. And I was walking into my office, and I saw a young private first class. He was doing extra duty, and I put my hand around him and I said, "Hey, young man, how are you?" And he started crying. He said, "Why would a guy like you talk to me?" And I knew that was a red flag. That was the same thing that happened to me some 20 years ago. I brought him into the office, and my deputy at the time is banging on my door. "Hey, you got a meeting with the CG? We've been trying to get this meeting for a month and a half, right?" And so I told him, "Hey, tell the CG I can't make it." My office, my staff, they were furious at me because we were trying to get this meeting with the CG for some time. But I thought it important to take care of that life in front of me because I heard the signs. I heard what he said. So at that moment, I'm not thinking about my career. I'm not thinking about anything but that young man. Interestingly enough, which I know most leaders now because I'm older, he saw me about a month and a half later and said, "Chaplain, that was absolutely the right thing to do. I heard about that." I didn't tell him about it. He said that was the right thing to do. And so going back to, your point about leadership, I mean, we got to listen. And I know the ship is running, sir. I know the battle rhythm. I know it's tough. But sometimes you just got to stop and pause and say, "I'm going to talk to this soldier." I gave my CG a note the other day, one of the soldiers struggling, and I whispered in his ear, "Sir, I need you to take care of this today." And he respects me enough. He took care of it. He made the call and, talked to that person. And he probably saved a life. He probably never know that, and I'll never know that. But that's the time he stopped and listened, and I respect him a great deal for that.
Chaplain, that's an amazing recount of something that happened. I was going to use the word story, but it's just an amazing experience that you share. So, kind of unrelated to suicide, my wife sometimes shares with me to enjoy the moment and live in the moment. And I'm going to take a little risk and equate that back to the account that you just shared of please pass on to the CG. I'm going to miss this meeting because I have a moment that I have to deal with.
Yes, sir.
And you just gave that soldier, my thoughts and my words, obviously I wasn't there, but you gave that soldier a moment of value and he's probably, I don't know if he's still in or not, but
He's,
you definitely,
he's a lieutenant right now, sir.
that's even more amazing. That's even more amazing. So, well, you just gave me a nugget that I will personally put back in my cargo pocket to live in the moment and notice when those moments and signals are given to you. And I hope others that may listen to this take that as well. I really thank you, Chaplain, for that.
Sure.
Hey, Lee, let me ask you because you know, we're all field grade officers now and have been in for a while, but from a professional perspective, I'll say as a leader and a chaplain. And before I go there, I would like to another point in the account that you just shared with me, which was powerful, Khalid. I think leaders have opportunities, just as you demonstrated and illustrated, but peers do as well. You know, a roommate, a squad mate, someone in the team. Well, what would you, if you could give advice to, say, two privates that are working together, or just young soldiers, on they can be engaged too? What advice would you give a formation, say a squad of all PFCs and E4s, and taking care of their battle?
Yeah, it's great that you said that question. I mean, this is amazing. I went down to Fort Lee last weekend, and I was doing a retirement ceremony for one of my buddies, and we came up and enlisted together. We had a formation there of about 25 privates, and I asked the sergeant major, can I talk to them? And sat down with them for an hour and a half, 2 hours that I didn't have, and kind of address what you're talking about right now. And I took them back to my days as a private. I say, some of you guys right now are struggling. You don't know if you can make it. Some of you guys are suicidal. Some of you guys don't think you have self-worth. I would tell you, and I recounted my story to them, I would tell you, you have value. And when you think that you can't make it, this is probably not good for everybody. I gave them my personal cell phone number. And I can tell you, they text me, they call me, and I'm always there to take the call. But I told them, more importantly, you know, you got battle buddies to your left and right, and you should use them. And one young kid said, sir, he said, sir, I've agreed with everything you said until then. He said, if we sometimes tell our battle buddies our weaknesses, they tease us, because, you know, the Army or any other organization is so, you know, machismo, if I can use that word, is so built on strength. Sometimes people don't have time for weaknesses. So one of the great things about the chaplain, they can call me or text me, and it's all confidential, and I can build them up and send them back out to the fight. After I left there, Sergeant Major sent out a tweet, a picture, and this is not about me, but the picture was so powerful. It was me hugging this young soldier, guy, he's about my size. And the quote said, leaders like this don't come around too often because leaders like this don't come around too often, right? And she was saying that, you know, because we have rank and we are now in the upper echelon of senior leaders, those soldiers can't connect with us because we're never around them. And I called her. She's a friend of mine, and I asked her, what did that mean? She said, Chaplain Shabazz, what you did right there, taking 2 hours just to talk to those soldiers unscheduled, changed their lives. I tell you, sir, I mean, I'm a baby. So I just sat on my couch and I cried for about 10 minutes. And then I went to the gym to try to build myself back up. But I tell you that as leaders, we have a great opportunity to just go put our hands around somebody who is diametrically opposed to us, not opposed to us, different than us in rank and stature, gender. And it'll mean the world to them. You remember when they told me you were coming to our cent, I was at post at the front door because I was going to get a picture with you, right? Because of who you are and what you've done in your life. And I know it's taken a great deal to get where you are. And I wasn't going to miss an opportunity to take a picture with you because it means something to me that, you were here at our center. And so on another level, it means something to those young soldiers when I'm taking my time out to be with them.
More than powerful times too, Khalid. You just gave, I wish I could put that in doctrine on what engaged leadership really is and the impact of it. And sometimes you don't know the impact of it until you do it. So that's a great, I'll call it a vignette, but a real life account of engaged leadership. And you won't get to see the seeds that you may have sown just from visiting there.
Yes, sir.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you went back to the gym because you got to keep that 6'4" body back in shape, like you said.
That's right. That's right. We're getting a little older.
I like to call it seasoned. We're not older. We're seasoned now.
We're seasoned, yes, sir.
Hey, Khalid, Chaplain, and I offer this. It is a question, but I'd like to give some context first. One, obviously, in the current position I'm in, we work the suicide policies and a lot of enterprise level approaches to suicide prevention. One's too many. Last year was not a good year for us numbers wise, but quite frankly, one's too many, and want to look at all venues to assist our soldiers and their families, and that's across all three components. But Khalid, if I may ask, from your perch of your foundation of being an Army chaplain now in a big command, and I would say coupled with the experiences you've had that have brought you to this chaplaincy, what do you see, and I have a thick skin on this, what do you see that is working well, or what are we missing that I could apply to the enterprise approach and help filter that down to the people in the field to make things better? We have a lot that's working well, but again, one suicide's too many, and anything we can do, such as this forum, to touch soldiers. So what's working? What can we do better? What do you see?
Yeah, it's a couple of things, sir. And I asked you a question the other day over email about the role of the chaplain. And it's not a pitch for the chaplain's corps, but the command chaplain is just that he's a command chaplain. And sometimes the chaplain has not been a part of the team. And so what that does to soldiers is, one of my majors the other day walked by a group of soldiers and they didn't salute. And I said, hey guys, why didn't you guys salute? They say, oh, he's just a chaplain, right? And so that's a leadership opportunity for me. And so I said, why do you say he's just a chaplain? And everybody laughed, right? It was almost a sense of disrespect. But I understood it because that's what people say. Oh, he's just a chaplain. Chaplains are a great asset. Every chaplain on active duty has a master's degree in divinity. And if that chaplain somehow, it's not an end all, it's just a answer, a way, can be incorporated more. And I don't know how that's done. I'm not smart enough, but then those soldiers have an opportunity to go to him because he's a respected leader. Now, what I've done here, that's worked very well, sir. We call it the Lunch, Laugh, and Learn. It's a project that I developed where my team goes to every directorate in the headquarters. And this is just at Arcent or everywhere I've been. And we sit down and we do bag lunches with that directorate. It's a prevention strategy where they get to know you on a personal level, and we get to go in and talk about anything they want to talk about. What I found, because I started this as a lieutenant colonel, they may not talk to you for 2, 3, 4 months, but when they're at their worst times, now they already know you. And I find them trickling in here a lot. When Lieutenant General Farrell was here and Sergeant Major Hester, they said, wow, I mean, that should be a DA program that's mandatory that, chaplains or behavior health people go into each directorate and just have some time with them to get to know them, because our profession is kind of spooky, behavioral health or chaplains, and so if the people don't know you, they're not going to come to you. So that's just a way that I've found to be successful over the last 5 years. I got to tell you, and I'll close here. I'm leaving here in about 3 days, and I haven't had a chance to clear, sir, because people are coming in here in tears. Chaplain, why are you leaving? Has it been 18 months? Because they know me. I've been to every directorate. I sit with them, I talk with them, I eat lunch with them, and it's been phenomenally successful. So that's just a way, sir.
Oh, thanks, Chaplain, in a very powerful way, and I think the engagements you've had over the last 3 days speak to where the overwhelming impact you're having and will continue to have. Hey, Khalid, I can't thank you enough. I wish I could be there to give you a hug right now. I can't thank you enough for these stories, the accounts that you've given us, a rich life story that brought you to where you're at now. And I bet if we went back 25 years, you couldn't have written this. So this is amazing. And my big takeaways, and professionally and personally, I've gotten a lot out of this discussion, is the value of engagement, engaged leadership at all levels, the value of cohesion. I like the story you told me of two soldiers, the soldiers talking to you and then being the perception of being harassed or joked about with others, but true, the value of the battle buddies is important. And then throughout this, Khalid, and these are my words here, capturing the moment. Some have said, say something, see something, but just capturing the moment. And I really appreciate the example you gave of the soldier you were talking to that caused you to have to delay a meeting with the CG, but you just saved a life, possibly. And that soldier's gone on to be a lieutenant now, so it was just amazing. So, Chaplain Khalid, I know we have a phone call coming up personally. I'm looking forward to doing that. It might be when you get to your next assignment.
Yes, sir.
Let me personally, professionally thank you for being you. And
Thank you.
big, bold, underline, just being you, and the impact that you've had on, for those listening today and in our Army. And for those who are listening today, I would offer up, ladies and gentlemen, of all ranks, or civilians, if you need help, I'm very sincere about this, if you need help, I encourage you to call the Military Crisis Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K, and press option 1. Or you can text 838-255. And team, don't be afraid if you need to call. This is free and is confidential and 24/7 assistance, because suicides are important enough for our society and the Army as well. So, Khalid, I know we're all busy people. Hopefully you can get some clearing done. I wish you the very best.
Yes, sir.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time now, but please do stay tuned for our next episode of Stories of Hope, and we'll be sure to send it out. And Chaplain, someone told me in the past, sometimes the best words are just thank you. So from me to you, thank you. From our Army to you, thank you. And I wish you the very best and Godspeed in your future. And for those who are listening today, please know that the sun does come up, is always shining, and is someone you can reach to and talk to at all times. Thank you very much.
Stories of Hope, brought to you by the Army Resiliency Directorate and the Army's Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel.